Everyone, this is Ross Raddi, and welcome to another episode of Fruit Talk. We are live this episode, and yeah, if you're not familiar with Fruit Talk, it's the podcast-style video that I do for you guys every Wednesday night at 9 o'clock Eastern. We talk all about fruits, vegetables, all kinds of things related to that in terms of growing it, using it in the kitchen, really the weird and unusual stuff that you probably I never even really heard of. So let's get into it. Before I do, though, I want to make two quick announcements. One, if you guys are watching us on YouTube right now and you're fans of us on YouTube, comment down below on this video or in the chat right now and let me know what kind of videos you guys want me to put out in the next couple months. Because now the growing season's officially here. I did get some ideas from you guys in a prior announcement video. I think most of it, all the suggestions, I've already created a video on that topic or had created it after we had gotten those ideas. So if we have new ideas, please put them down in the comments. Please put those down in the chat right now, perhaps. Mark says, dude, you're killing it. I can hardly keep up. Yeah, I know. I agree, dude. Let me pop out the chat real quick. We'll make our second announcement here in just a second. Okay, pop out chat. All right, we're good. So, second announcement, we actually are going to have lots of fig trees for sale coming up very soon. I would say sometime, sometime in early May. So about 2 weeks from now, or to mid-May. And there's a lot of trees that actually still need to harden off. That's what we're doing right now. Once they harden off to the outdoor conditions, I really think that they'll be ready to go. But not all of them. We can't do them all at once because I really want these trees to be of a really good size. I think a lot of them are actually really well rooted out in their pots. Probably fully rooted out in a 1 gallon size pot, but I want to give you guys some size. I hate buying and I hate seeing fig trees that people are either trading or selling that are just really small, weak trees. It kind of bothers me. So I want to give you guys a larger tree if I can, or a healthier tree if I can. So we may need to wait a little bit, but it is what it is. Anyway, so this episode we're gonna talk all about berries. And at the end, we'll do a nice Q&A for everyone who's just joining. Save your questions. You can post them now, and I'll get back to them at the end of this video. But it should be about 15, 20 minutes or so, and I'll definitely get to everyone's questions. We still also have to go back into all the YouTube comments and all the videos for like the last week and a half or so. I have a lot of unanswered questions there. So maybe if you've had a question in the last week and a half, you can post it here, and that way I won't have to answer it through text. But anyway, this episode, like I said, is all about berries. And you can see here on this Instagram photo, I came across this really not that long ago. I was like, what am I going to do for this episode tonight of Fruit Talk? I was like, what am I going to talk about? And I've actually there's so much going on. I've actually made so many videos in the last about week that I feel like I've exhausted a lot of topics. So this one came up and I was like, oh, wow, this is a great photo, obviously. And look at the huge, just assortment here of berries. So I want to talk about all the different types of berries that I know of and the ones that I think are worth growing. There's a lot of them out there that I don't really even have any experience with, but I know that they exist. And I think they're potentially worth growing, but for someone like me who's sort of limited on space and all that, I had to really be choosy and figure out what was actually going to ripen here, what was going to be easier to grow, and then also what was kind of worth growing. I think there's a lot of berries out there, believe it or not. We all love berries, man. There's so many of them. But out of, I think, the large majority of them that we probably don't know about, there's only really a handful of them, I think, that are really worth growing for the flavor. I think a really good example of that something may not be worth growing, is probably some of these berries that we're going to get to here in these different tabs. But certainly, I think all the berries in this photo here are worth growing. Now, there's things called currants, right? I guess we can start with currants. And currants, there's red currants, there's white currants. You can see them photo here, and there's also black currants. And they all have a different flavor, believe it or not. And that's pretty much across the board with a lot of fruits. Based off the color of the fruit, will have a different corresponding flavor. Certainly my red currants taste different than the black ones that I have, but I don't have any white currants or pink currants. I believe there's pink currants as well. I know my uncle, who is like really a talented chef, he really loves the pink ones, I believe. So I don't know what to say. I don't know which one really I could say is the best, but I know the black currants, people rave about them in terms of jam. Also liqueurs. This is a fruit that you really kind of have to process. Certainly with the red currants and the pink ones and the white ones, I think you can get away with eating them fresh. And I've eaten some red currants fresh. They're not that bad. And they're actually, in my yard, they're very easy to grow, and they're putting out lots of fruit right now. And they're one of the earliest things you can get to ripen in your yard. So for me, I think it's a highly valued crop. And I made jam out of my red currants last year. It was really good, I have to say. I guess we can move on to strawberries. And strawberries, everyone knows strawberries, right? This is typical strawberry. But there's also different colors within strawberries. There's purple strawberries, which I just picked up this year. We'll get to taste them probably next year. It's called Purple Wonder from Burpee. I think Cornell bred that strawberry, so that's a purple strawberry. I imagine it's going to have a really intense, probably aromatic flavor to it. Probably similar to my Mare de Bois. Mare de Bois tastes a lot like Concord grapes, kind of like Welch's grape juice. That strawberry is just incredible. But then they take it even further with the Alpine strawberry you can see here. And this person in the photo took it even further because these are white Alpine strawberries. The white strawberries, whether they're Alpines or just a regular strawberry, they taste a lot like pineapple. They really do. I actually got rid of my white regular strawberry that I had because it needs, it didn't seem very productive, and it also needs a pollinator, and that seems to be, at the time, a bit of an issue. It was also a very soft strawberry, and it didn't really hold up. You know, it's out in the garden for maybe a day, and the thing's kind of already deteriorating, which is sort of a good thing, and that's why there's commercial varieties out there. The firmness of the berry is very important. That really improves the shelf life. So for me, I love the Alpines, even though they're so soft. I don't think it really matters too much. It doesn't really affect the quality of the berry. But certainly with Mare de Bois, you notice that because it's a more softer berry, you know, if you let it hang out there for too long, it's not going to be that good. You got to be on it every single day. But to be honest with you, if you have berries and you're not picking them every day, I think it's a mistake. I really do, because eventually something's going to find that berry and you're going to have issues. So definitely find something that you're going to pick and you're going to love, because if you're not picking it every day, it could turn into an issue. I guess the next thing I want to talk about, because we could have transitioned into something called gooseberry. The gooseberry is very similar to a grape, and they come in all kinds of colors: reds, yellows. This one's green. Also purples and black gooseberries. They're native. I think there's even some gooseberries that are native to the United States, but they're really popular in England and Europe. They don't really like intense heat, which my climate, we get some pretty hot days, but I haven't noticed that at all. In fact, we can get to 100, no problem. You know, we can get in the high 90s, and my gooseberries are fine. My honeyberries are fine. My currants are fine. These are things that people say don't really belong in really hot climates, but I haven't noticed that at all, guys. I'm gonna be honest. If you mulch the soil, you got lots of moisture in the soil. It didn't seem to really affect them. So the gooseberry, though, tastes a lot like a grape. It really is a grape, but it's like an early grape. So the way I like to describe it is that you got the gooseberries sometime in July. You got the European table grape, which we're used to eating at the store, right? In the United States, that's what we see all the time. That grape ripens sometime, usually in August. I mean, there's earlier varieties, there's later varieties. But then after that, you got something called the muscadine grape. And the muscadine grape is a fall grape. certainly native to the southern half of the United States. I actually found out that there's some hardier varieties of muscadine, Lane and Triumph. We just planted them last week, and we actually have a video coming out, I think Sunday, on us planting those muscadine grapes. We talk about training them a little bit, kind of what goes into the planting. But across the board, I think if you really like grapes, you can kind of have that succession where you've got gooseberries, then the European grapes, and then the muscadines. They're all really tasty. They all have really weird differences. You can't even all say that they're the same. It would be kind of a mistake. And then that kind of leads me into the next fruit, which is called the Joste Berry. And I guess that's why we shouldn't have went to strawberries, because the Joste Berry is a hybrid between the white or the currants and the gooseberries. I think it's actually black currant. Maybe it's not black currant. It depends on the currant. And the gooseberry, I guess, could turn into a different colored Joste Berry. I don't know. I'm not a breeder myself, but there's all different types of Joste Berries out there now. And the Joste Berry is said to be an even better gooseberry that has a lot of that black currant, weird, interesting, complex currant flavor in it. And it probably is going to be something, I think, in my yard I'm really going to want. And I've even started propagating them and putting them in different places in the yard. I would say out of the fruits I've just mentioned, other than the strawberries, so you got the currants, the gooseberries, and the Joste Berries, I'm probably most excited about the Joste Berries out of the currants and the gooseberries. So I'm actually interested in looking for better gooseberries and better Joste Berries. I've noticed in my yard so far that out of the gooseberries I've tried, there's one variety of gooseberry that kind of had a grainy texture. It wasn't necessarily similar to a grape as other ones have been. And it was grainy, sort of like a pear, like a really gritty pear. And I didn't really like that. So I think there's a varying difference there in flavor, but also in texture. We'll see. And then the rest of these fruits here, you got loganberry, boysenberry, tayberry, youngberry. You've got raspberry, the sylvanberry. There's also something called a thimbleberry, which we'll get to in a bit. These are all blackberry and raspberry hybrids in a way. Maybe not all of them are crossed between each other, but certainly they are hybrids within each. So, maybe hybrids within blackberries, hybrids within raspberries. Out of all of these, it is said that the best one is the Marion Berry. And this is, I think, just straight up a type of blackberry. Between different types of blackberries were bred together. I think the Marion Berry is the best one. They say it has a really complex flavor. This one was bred and is grown widely in Oregon. And this one's really loved out there. And it's for good reason. The only issue with it here is that it's not hardy enough. So what you have to do is, because it is actually a trailing blackberry, grow it along the ground. And then if you grow it along the ground, it's not really that big of an issue. It just becomes a ground cover. And then every fall, when things go dormant, cover that with some straw, cover that with mulch, and the thing will survive. We just planted 3 of these plants today. And I think this is going to be king in terms of all the blackberries that I can grow. We still have Primark Freedom, but Primark Freedom I'm having issues with, and we'll see if maybe or not I'm going to keep it or get rid of it. Who knows? But here's the thimbleberry here, actually, and the thimbleberry is very similar to a raspberry. But what I've learned about this, it's very weird because you can actually grow this in full shade. So that's that just blows my mind. You can get a crop of fruit completely in the shade all day, and this will ripen a whole lot of fruit for you. I do know that the birds like this. Also, this one didn't really seem that appealing to me in terms of the quality of the fruit, because it's very soft, and because it's so soft, it doesn't really have that firmness of a normal raspberry. And it's kind of like, I imagine it'd be like eating a mushy, kind of like overripe raspberry. That to me doesn't seem very appealing. I really like the texture and the fiber in some of these berries. So this is kind of, I would imagine, sort of like eating slop. I don't know. I've never had one, but That's the one reason why I'm kind of against not really eating it, or growing it, I should say. The mulberry is seriously overlooked. I can't believe that this person didn't have a mulberry on this little picture here too. Kind of blows my mind, because the mulberry is such an iconic, widely grown berry, not just in the United States. We're talking about overseas, the Middle East, Europe. We've talked a lot about mulberries, guys. There's all different types. There's white mulberries that taste a little bit more nutty, maybe even have some honey-like flavors in there. The mulberry is, to me, a more complex blackberry. It's better than a blackberry for sure. Although the blackberry has its place. I love blackberries. But, it's hard to beat this fruit. And there's so many varieties out there. You've got even long ones like this one here. This is the Pakistan type. You even have the Morris Niagara types, which are supposed to be the best species of blackberry, or the best species of mulberry, I'm sorry. So we'll compare. I'm really interested to see the difference between your typical mulberry versus the Morris Niagara mulberries. My Morris Niagara mulberry is going insane in a pot. It seems to do really well, and if I get to taste it, I will. I'm going to be really shocked if I don't get to taste it this year. If it's as good as everyone keeps saying it is, I'm going to make many copies of it, because it does really well in a pot, and I can overwinter it just like I could overwinter a fig. It's also really small. The thing doesn't get huge. It's a really slow growing tree. It just does really well in a pot, and I can't understand why so many people have had issues with this particular tree and this species of tree, because it doesn't do well in lots of areas of the country. It's not very hardy, even though somebody was telling me the other day that they overwintered it in zone 5 or something, and all they did was wrap it in burlap. I don't know. We'll see. But I think there's some potential here with this particular berry out of the majority of the berries I've just mentioned. The honeyberry. This is another big one that I really, really like. And the honeyberry is like a wild blueberry. Just think of a blueberry. It looks like a blueberry, but it's shaped differently. But it's got this really wild, kind of like the difference between a strawberry and an alpine strawberry. There's that like wow factor. There's that complexity in it. I think that's what these are. I'm kind of really hoping we are going to get a decent crop this year off my honeyberries, it seems like, but nothing really that's going to be amazing. We do have 2 new varieties we planted, and those 2 new varieties seem to possibly have a higher sugar content, a higher Brix, and if that's the case, I can ripen them a bit longer. I actually think this may be one of the best berries I grow. So I'm really excited for this one. I know a lot of people don't like it, but I think that's because of the sugar content, and I think it's just because they don't let it hang long enough. This thing needs to turn fully blue, just like it is in the photo here, but it needs to be blue like that for like 3 weeks. It's kind of nuts. Then you got Saskatoons. I think Karen here, yeah, she was mentioning Saskatoons. And this is very similar in my mind to a blueberry. In fact, almost strikingly similar to a blueberry in almost all respects, except the plant is very different in the way that it grows. Well, it is very similar in terms of that it's a bush, but this fruit doesn't, or this particular plant doesn't need a low pH like blueberries do. And that's why really people struggle big time with blueberries. By the way, I need to do a video on my blueberries, because you would not believe how many blueberries I'm going to get this year. And it's only like 6 plants or so. It's going to be insane. I think it's like this will be their 3rd year in the ground, but I've grown them for a number of years in pots. So they're getting older in terms of their age, but wow, I'm actually shocked by how much fruit they have. The service berry, or the Saskatoon we're looking at here, also called the June berry. There's many names for this damn thing. But this one is so similar to a blueberry, but there's some seeds in it. Very small little seeds that obviously is more of like a mouthfeel thing. It's not something you're going to have to spit out or you're not going to like. Maybe you won't like it, but for me, I think it adds a little bit of texture to the whole thing. I think it really makes a blueberry just a little bit more interesting. I don't know. The next fruit here is the Goomy Berry, and I'm also growing this, and my Goomy Berries are actually fully loaded from top to bottom with fruit this year. This is one of the first fruits to ripen in your yard. The birds do go after this because it is red and it is very early. So you do have to protect it in most cases, I would say. But I don't think many birds know what this is too much. At least immediately, they're kind of like, you know, what is this? I'm unfamiliar with this. But certainly something got my only Goomy Berries last year. I think this year I'll probably get somewhere around 150, 200 berries. That's pretty good. I got 2 plants. They're actually supposed to be not that good, but similar to the honeyberry, is that what you have to do is you have to let them turn red and let them hang there for a while. You know, it's not really done when they're just red. They need to be red for quite some time, which is really why something had stolen it off my plant last year. But, you know, they do actually fix nitrogen. They're nice little companion plants, I guess. You know, they grow really quickly. They're also sort of easily maintained. You know, they're not going to get crazy. Maybe like 6 by 6. A lot of these bushes, by the way, a lot of these fruits and these berries I had just mentioned really don't take up a whole lot of space. I think that's the best part about growing berries, is that you don't need a huge yard to grow berries. The Aronia berries, I've seen these guys actually quite large, these plants. I was in Jersey. I went to this guy's house who was having like he was hosting something there, and he was growing all these different types of berries that I'm mentioning. I got a pretty good amount of information from him. I think it was a part of NOFA, for those of you guys who are in NOFA or know what NOFA is, but maybe it's not NOFA. I don't know. But anyway, the point is, he had these at his house, and he let us try them, and they were ripe, and they were in season, and they are not good. They are, you know what? I actually do think they are good. The problem is they're so astringent that you can't really get them down. You can't eat a lot of them. If you do like astringency, like kind of some wines are a little astringent. You know, persimmons obviously are too astringent. There is some things that are astringent that people do sort of like, but this one has a little bit too much astringency, I think, or maybe if you can get them somehow. I wish there was some way, because I love the flavor of the berry, but you get hit with that astringency and you're like, I can't do it. But yeah, of course, like you guys are saying, you can process them. You can process all this stuff, I'm sure, in some way that makes it something special. You know, even the Goomy Berry, whereas probably the Goomy Berry is probably the worst out of everything I mentioned in terms of flavor. But I'm sure there's something you can do with the Goomy Berry to make them into something really worth growing. I mean, it really is, how much work are you willing to put into this? The Elderberry is a similar thing in that you don't really want to eat them fresh. You could, but they're kind of really acidic, really tart. So a lot of people process them. They make great jam. They make great wine. They make great liqueurs. You know, this is a really incredible plant, actually, that's really difficult to kill, really difficult to it just does well on its own. You know, it's hard to neglect this thing. So I think it's something that a lot of people should grow, but for me, I've been strayed away from this plant only because I've heard bad things about this one and spotted wing Drosophila. So spotted wing Drosophila really loves berries and soft flesh fruits, in that this one has so many of these berries that I'm kind of a little bit worried about it. You could, however, grow one of these and use the flowers. The flowers have their own little edible aspect to them, really big in terms of cooking, and you know, bigger chefs, and really they really do all kinds of weird things with the flowers. You can have like elderflower wine, I believe, just from the flowers. I mean, this is a really interesting berry. I think is worth looking into for sure. And look at the amount of fruit clusters. These things they're just very productive, man. They just keep putting out fruits. They have these heads everywhere, and this is not like an exaggeration of what the productivity looks like. So we also have the sea berry, and this is the one that I've been kind of put on the back burner for a long time. This is probably the last one on my list because this guy, you definitely have to process it. Again, it's very tart. Apparently has lots of like nutritional properties to it. I'm sure a lot of these berries do, right? But this one makes pretty good juice, and similar in terms of processing it, you got to do something with it. You can make it, I'm sure, into some kind of drink, maybe some kind of alcoholic beverage. But I think what this one really struggles with me is that you need a male and a female. And because you need two of them, it was like, oh, well, now I need to get additional fruits, additional things. You know, it just is going to take up more space. So I don't really know if this is something I really want in the near future, but definitely down the road. I mean, look, it's extremely productive. The things, I mean, this is not an exaggeration. I mean, look at that. That's normal. So they're also really easy to grow. And I think they also fix nitrogen as well. So they pretty much can do whatever it is on their own. You don't have to bother them. And that's the sea berry. We also have the Goji Berry. So the Goji Berry here, I grow this one, and we've done videos on this, and I think I'm going to do a video, hopefully because I'm going to get a large harvest this year of these. I'm going to kind of let them all ripen up at one time, come in there and pick them all at once, and then dry them and add in lots of sugar. And that's, I think, going to make them edible, because I think dried, they're not that bad, but off the plant, they're horrible. Now, what does really stink is that there is two different species. This is one of the first videos I did. When I first started growing goji berries, I couldn't believe how bad they were. I gave one to my brother. For those of you who saw this video, this is a true story. I gave one to my brother and said, here, eat this berry. I just grew it. Here, try it. My brother's always willing to try something, right? He tries it. I'm smiling, I'm smirking because I know how bad it is. And he literally thought that I poisoned him for a second, because that's how bad it was. So now that's one species. That's Lycium chinense, I believe. So Lycium chinense, that's the one you don't want, I believe. Whereas Lycium bibarum, that one actually has a bit more sweetness to it. It's kind of like a pepper, and it actually is in the nightshade family. And it reminds me very much so of like a pepper that has a really off-putting flavor to it, low sugar. It's like a slightly sweet pepper. It's just really, really strange. But it's really productive and easy to grow. Also, I have them in a nice little umbrella shape. So if my microphone is a stake, and then they're all trained up the stake, and then they come out like this in a little umbrella, and it forms a really beautiful plant. So I think there's some ornamental appeal to it for sure. And it's not like we should just ditch it because it's horrible. But if I can get this thing in a way that is going to be able to be processed and dry it and add the sugar in, I think I'm going to be okay with this plant. I'm not going to be like, oh, everyone should grow goji berry, because it's not for everyone. I think you need to really acquire a taste for these. I'm not going to lie. And you also need to be real hungry. You need to be like starving. You need to be somebody. You know what? Because Rocco said that he doesn't like Aronias. But I think I would rather eat Aronia berries than this berry. So for those of you who have had Aronias, you can kind of get an idea, you know. But anyway, let's move on. This is well, actually, I want to talk about one more berry after this, but this is the lingonberry. And the lingonberry, my buddy Big Bill is in love with this berry. I didn't know how much he was. I went to his house. He told me all about it. I got a plant from him. He was showing me them. Mine's coming back. It's very hardy. Would a lot of people in Sweden grow this one? Because it's so hardy that you can grow it there and it'll ripen a full crop. It's a nice little ground cover. It's beautiful. I think it's even evergreen, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe I'm wrong on that. Mine is not evergreen. But maybe that's because it was a young plant. I don't know. But people love this thing. It's very tart. You got to process it. I think you can even eat them. I think you can eat them straight. You can eat them fresh. So I'm not going to say it's going to be the best berry fresh, but I'm sure there's varieties out there. Maybe they're breeding them. I know Bill has a ton of them. There's also a ton of varieties of them online. I bet you there's one that's just a little bit less tart and a little bit more sweet, and it's probably something that's really worth eating fresh. But finding that variety is going to be tough. I'd probably have to go on a quest to like grow 30 different types of lingonberries to figure this out, because I don't know anyone who's growing that many lingonberries other than Bill. And I think Bill actually is trying to figure that out, but maybe not necessarily that particular thing. But so yeah, I mean, this is one I think is worth growing and processing. When I was in Japan this past June, we met some Swedish people there, and they were telling me all about lingonberries, because I told them, actually, I just randomly, I didn't even tell them I grow fruit. I was just like, hey guys, do you like lingonberries? And of course, being Swedish, they were like, yeah, we love lingonberries. I was like, oh, what do you do with them? And then they told me all the stuff that they do with them. And I don't know, it seemed a little strange to me. I think they eat them kind of like we eat cranberries, kind of like cranberry sauce, sort of like, I think they eat them for breakfast, or they eat them with meat. I don't remember what the kids said that I met. But anyway, that's a weird fruit. I think Bill, because he loves it so much, I'm interested. But as far as that, I don't know. So this is one vine here called the Akibia vine that when I was in Japan, I met these people that owned this bar, this Japanese couple that owned this bar, and we made friends with them, and they really loved American culture, and they had this whole bar that was really American style themed. Believe it or not, a lot of Japanese people sort of really like American culture, as we love, at least a lot of us like Japanese culture here in America. It's kind of like this weird back and forth. But I would say the one fruit that they were recommending to me, I was like, what fruits can I try here in Japan? What do you recommend? What do you like? And they actually said their favorite fruit was figs. And I was like, oh, well, we're going to get along. And then they were telling me about this particular fruit called the Akibia. And I was like, I never heard of this thing. And then I was like, you know what? I think they are growing this. I think Rain Tree Nursery sells this. I looked it up today. In the past couple of days, I've been interested. I thought about getting these. But what I've learned about them is that they're kind of bland, a little bit more like an underripe fig, in that I would say an underripe fig is more like melony, kind of less intense, more of like a refreshing fruit rather than something that's like in your face, like a real dessert type of thing. You know what I mean? And I don't know if I really want to grow something that's not as intense, but I'm so interested by this weird looking fruit. Now, what this is that it has a pod on the exterior, and when the fruit's ripe, see, this one's not open, but when the fruit actually becomes ripe, the pod opens up and reveals the flesh. What you do is you take a spoon and you just spoon out the flesh. There's some seeds in there, but you can just eat the seeds. And it's actually not bad, apparently. Also, it's a beautiful plant. The flowers are beautiful. It has an incredible aroma. If, Adam, you're watching this video, this is one you may want to try. The aroma I hear on this one is incredible. It's called the chocolate vine for a reason. So I want to try this one for sure, but I don't know if I can really swing it this year or even find a spot for it. Planetary Awareness just said, what about the Schisandra berry? And you know what? I completely forgot about this. This is an interesting little berry, I have to say. And I've seen videos on this. I've seen information about this. This one apparently is not bad. This would be something I bet higher up on my list of things to try, weird and interesting plants to try. They say this one has a lot of like health properties to it. Where have I seen this video? There's this woman I've seen talks all about, oh, this guy, this guy is hilarious. This guy, I remember seeing him and talking about the vine. Look at this guy. Guy, what if I grew out my beard to this length, guys? You know what? I've already been growing out my hair for about 6 months, so we could do this. If you guys want to see me do this, just put, put one in the chat here. Just hit one. Anyway, this guy talks all about it, and this is a really good video for those of you who are interested in learning about this particular vine and this fruit. I have to say that I don't really remember too much about it, but I remember him telling me that you do need a male and a female, and that his particular issue was that for the longest time it would grow and grow and grow. It would overwinter no problem, but he only had one or the other. He only had females or he only had males. And then he finally realized that, oh, it needs the other one, and he planted the other one, and now he's got fruit. So I think he was talking about the fruit here potentially, or actually he's only showing us the flowers. It would be nice to get a better, in-depth information on this particular fruit, but who mentioned that, by the way? Planetary awareness. If you know something about this berry, good or bad, let us know. So that's kind of this episode of Fruit Talk, guys. I hope you enjoyed this one. We're going to do the Q&A now. So if you guys are interested and have any questions and whatnot, let me know. I do want to do a couple announcements, I guess, or not really an announcement, but... Oh, that's right. It's the 5-flavor berry. That's right. I totally forgot. So this one has, apparently, according to, what is it, like the 5 flavors. Yeah. So according to the 5 flavors, there's, what is it? We just saw it. Sweet, sour, bitter, salty, and umami. And apparently this berry has it all. So interesting. These are actually the berries that I mentioned, by the way. These are the berries that I would grow in my climate. There's so many berries out there. There's even berries that you wouldn't even think are a berry. Like pomegranate is a berry. Each of these little things on the inside here, I guess, are a berry. And there's a weird definition of what is a berry, right? So even things, I think, if I looked up, I think I looked this up on Wikipedia, and we all know that Wikipedia is a real credible source. But, it's even saying here the definition includes many fruits that are not commonly known as berries, such as grapes, tomatoes, cucumbers, eggplants, bananas. I know bananas are. And it really depends on the scientific terminology you want to use, I guess I could have went more into this thing, but, I don't know. I guess those are the berries that I feel comfortable with talking about to you guys, and would even think about growing. At least in my climate, we got kiwi berries. All right, so I don't know. A huckleberry, isn't that? Okay, a huckleberry is totally different than what I was thinking, but I haven't heard too many people say too many good things. So I know this one is actually pretty decent, but I haven't seen anyone be like, oh, you gotta grow this one, Isn't this a type of blueberry? I think this is a type of blueberry. It's a different species, I believe, but it's similar. I don't know. And then what is this, dude? Okay, so kiwi berries we totally forgot about. We love the kiwi berry. What is a wintergreen cherry berry? What is this? Planetary awareness, you should be doing this video. Yeah, okay, so you guys know what's going on here. I don't even have to, I don't even have to do this video. What am I doing here? You guys know more as much. You guys know as much as I do. I swear sometimes. Yeah, it does look like a holly. You're right. Look at that. I don't know, guys. Like I said, you could go on and on and on about these berries, and at the end of the day, it's like you just got to pick some and grow them. But I think at the end of the day, you're gonna be pretty impressed with most of the berries you grow. Especially in my climate, I think berries just do so good here. They're very easy to deal with. I mean, especially if you live in a more wet climate. A lot of these berry plants, they don't get too big, and as a result, their native area is usually a more shadier, more wet area. So if you have a shadier place that has lots of water there, that's probably a good place to be growing these berries. And that's also a big advantage, I think, to these berries, is that you don't have to put them directly in full sun, you know. Let's see here. Troy actually mentioned the gooseberry. We actually talked about the gooseberry in the beginning of this video. Same thing with currants. So, but yeah, if you guys have questions, please let me know in the comments now. We'll do that Q&A starting now. What I do want to mention to you guys while I have your attention still is that check out the website. You can go on here and see the blog. We are going to do a new blog post, I think, very soon. And if you want to know when we are doing blog posts, just subscribe down here to the blog, and you should get sent an email letting you know when I have a new blog. Also, if you want to know when I'm, by the way, when I'm doing these live streams, oh, that was loud. Sorry, guys. If you want to know when I'm doing these live streams, there's a bell somewhere around here. And you can just hit this bell. If I go to a different video here, I think you have to subscribe and then you can hit the bell. And if you hit the bell, that'll send you guys an email and let you know, oh, Ross is now doing a live stream. So, but anyway, guys, check that out. Check the website out. I'm really trying to make this a bit more interesting, different content for you guys. If you haven't found us on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter, you know, check us out. All the links are up here or even on the YouTube channel, or in the description of all the videos we do. So all up in here, guys. What else do I want to mention? We did talk about at the very beginning that we're selling lots of trees. So for anyone interested in fig trees of real special varieties, the varieties I talk about all the time, finally getting some berries or some trees for you guys. And we'll have those available on FigBid. All right, so Love Joy Gratitude said, how-to videos with demonstrations. Thank you, Ross. I love your videos. Thank you. Glad you're enjoying them. Mark says he wants me to pick one or two of the fig trees. He was mentioning that in terms of what fig trees I have available. He wants me to pick a winner or two. Well, it depends on where you live, Mark. I forget where you live. Don't you live near me? I would say... man, that's tough because I'm not really selling the varieties that I would really recommend for this area. as shitty as that is, excuse my language, but I would say the two varieties I'm most excited about, the three most varieties I'm excited about this year is Ischia Black, Campanile, and Pastelliere. So those three are really, really important to me. There's many other ones though that I really like. Things like Zafiro, LSU Champagne, Violet de Bordeaux, Ronde Bordeaux, Hardy Chicago, you know, all those different Hardy Chicago types like Azores Dark. We are going to have some Azores Dark trees for sale. What I am doing and planning to do is I'm going to have somewhere around like 5 Campanile trees in the ground, 4 Pastelliere trees in the ground. We're going to have like 8 or 9 Smith trees in pots. We're gonna have 1 in the ground. We're gonna have like we're really trying to expand the amount of varieties that I really love and expand the amounts of them. So, you know, I'm really excited this year to be propagating more of the varieties that I really, really love. I was just watching a video. I don't know about you guys, but I love my videos too. As weird as that is, I know it's weird, but I like to watch all my videos when I'm bored. And this is one video that I really loved. I watched this one today. And I was like in heaven just thinking about this video and how awesome it was to have 9 varieties at once. This was like one of the best days of my life, and we're gonna do this again. It's hopefully this time next, or that time next year. It won't just be 9 varieties. We'll be looking at maybe 20. Wouldn't that be something? And I think that's actually possible this year. So, I think actually if we didn't have a ton of rain last year, I would have maybe even gotten something around 15 at one time, perhaps. But because that rain came in, kind of ruined us. But the season's looking great so far. We got really a lot of figs that are coming on. Even now, we pinched a lot of our trees. We still have tons of varieties that need to wake up, but we're already before our last frost, and we're already getting fruit to form. So, but this one, like I was saying, is that this video just brought back some really awesome memories, and I think that's really what this is sort of all about in some ways. It's not just for you guys, but for me to look back on these moments and be like, wow, that was really cool. Okay, so Mark, hopefully that answered your question. Okay, Planetary Awareness says, I've planted lots of stone fruits and wondering what are some good ways to keep pests out. I have heard planting mint would attract beneficials that would eat them. A video on that would be cool. All right. I'm not entirely sure what beneficial plants, other than just any flowering plant, is going to really bring in those beneficial insects, which are then going to kill the bad insects. But if you really want to stop insects with your stone fruits, there's really only a few that you kind of have to really pay attention to. One that comes to mind in particular is the plum cucurleo, and we will do a video on that. We've already actually kind of talked about it a couple days ago when we talked about, I think we talked about it, or maybe it's coming out soon, but there is a video sort of touching on that topic where we need to actually spray our peaches this year after they set fruit. I'm gonna try, I think, to spray them depending on if we get a frost. If we get a frost that takes off a lot of flowers, a lot of fruit, it's gonna thin out my tree for me. Then what I will do is probably try and protect those fruits with Surround, which is a kaolin clay. It's organic. A lot of organic growers use it, and spray the fruits with the clay that stops and helps stop the plum cucurleo. And Surround actually has a ton of uses. We're probably going to get into that a little bit more in the season. Certainly with my melons, I learned an interesting trick with my melons and Surround. But I think that's really the biggest one. You have to really watch out for disease in terms of the stone fruits. I think more so than the insects. At least that's been my experience so far. You definitely get rot at different parts of the year if you live in a humid climate. If you don't live in a humid climate, you may not even have disease at all. But, there's lots of things that can affect the tree itself, also the fruit itself, and then there's the pests that affect the fruit itself. So, I would necessarily not pay too much attention to it. Just add in lots of flowering plants. I've been really blown away this year by how beautiful my yard is. Every year it gets more beautiful, and that's what we focused on this past year, was to add in lots of beauty. It's actually so beautiful out there. I come out there every day, and every time I turn the corner, I can't believe how beautiful it is all of a sudden. I always thought it was beautiful, but it's getting more and more beautiful. Yeah, Christopher said, not many shade fruits out there. Yeah, the thimbleberry is incredible. Jerry said, Marion Berry, mayor of Washington, D.C. in the 90s, died from a drug overdose. By the way, Jerry, you asked me a question recently. I didn't get back to it yet. It's about fertilizer. Just fertilize your trees now. As soon as they wake up, just start that fertilizer process. If it's organic, you should have probably started it maybe a bit ago, because that stuff needs to really break down. But the inorganic fertilizer, you can do that as soon as the trees wake up. We did do a video explaining the schedule and what exactly I'm using. I filmed that today, so that's going to come out soon, and you can kind of get an idea of what it is I'm using this year on all the potted trees. Okay, so Christopher says, how much growth do your honeyberries put off every year? They start out real slow, Christopher. They take a while to get going. They need to really root themselves, I think, as they take the first couple years to put out a lot of roots. Also, I think the very first year, especially if you don't have mulch, if it's too hot outside, they can kind of suffer. What ends up happening with the honeyberry, which kind of people I think are really confused about, is that they put out a ton of growth early in the season, and then sometime around July, they just stop growing. As soon as it gets too hot, they stop. But I don't think that's necessarily a sign of weakness or a sign of stress. I just think that might be what they naturally do. I don't know. But this year I'm expecting a ton of growth because for some of them, this will be their third year in the ground. I can already tell that they're going to put on a ton of growth. All that growth will really happen before July 1st-ish, sometime around that. Okay, Karen said, I planted 3 honeyberries when you did the video on them. The chipmunks found them, so I only had to taste 1. You know what, though, Karen? I have a feeling that the honeyberries, they don't really taste all that great when they're young. They may put out a couple berries here and there, but I think the quality is really spotty on those berries. I think they really do improve with age a little bit. So I don't think you really missed out on too much, really. I don't think it was too big of a deal. Blueberries in pots is really a big thing. You can grow blueberries in pots, no problem. The only issue is that if you let them dry out, you're going to regret it. And the nice thing about growing them in pots is you can really control the pH. You can just put them in a 10-gallon size pot, and they're going to actually fruit for you really well sometime around probably that third year. Okay, Jerry says, what zone can blueberries in pots overwinter in? I've overwintered them here in pots, left them outside all winter. I would say if you're in zone 6, you probably can get away with it too. They're really hardy. I would just, if I was you, if I was in zone 6, maybe even zone 5, just stick them outside, put them in a clump like I've done, and put the straw over it. Nothing's going to die, I promise you. That straw is incredible. Let's see here. Yeah, Christopher says he's done it in zone 6 and 7, near the house. Yeah, I mean, certainly. Christopher says, yeah, they're called the chokeberry for a reason. He's talking about Aronia berries. Yeah, they're very astringent. Planetary Awareness says Aronia berry tea is good. I'd be interested to try that. Christopher says you got to cook them up with lots of sugar. I don't doubt it. I really don't. If you cook these things, I'm sure a lot of the astringency goes away. And Rocco says they're the worst tasting thing ever. Troy says elderberries grow all over my farm. My kids eat them by handfuls. Ooh, okay. Elderberries are easy as figs, and they grow from cuttings. Yeah, they do. They're actually real easy to propagate. They're so hardy in terms of just, they don't die, man. You can really neglect them. That's interesting, though, that your kids eat them by hands. I really do want to try all this stuff. It's just, I'm really worried about that SWD. I'm going to be honest. So maybe what I could do is get them and then wrap an organza bag. I don't even know if that's going to help. But put an organza bag over an entire cluster, seal that up, and just do that for every cluster. And then once I want to harvest them, I can harvest them all at once. And then I actually don't think it'd be that big of an issue. I'm just really afraid of the birds and the SWD right now. So if I can get through this season with very little bird issues, very little SWD issues, I probably will try a lot of this stuff in the future. Okay. Yeah, they even have black goji berries, says Christopher. I doubt they taste any better. Yeah, you're probably right. Christopher likes lingonberries. They're evergreen. How do I keep the birds off all these berries? That's the thing. If you don't net this stuff and the birds find it, it's over. So the goal is to net everything or put organza bags on everything, and that will be me from the beginning of this year to the end. If I'm not protecting every single thing, the birds will become an issue on my property, and I won't get a lot of fruits. Sometime around August, though, they disappear. So anything after August, I don't have to protect from the birds. Christopher says IHOP sells lingonberry crepes. Okay, and I only got one single one in the chat from Christopher. I'm really disappointed. Okay, Karen says, is there anything you need to do for the honeyberry? Prune or cut them back? You actually don't have to prune them that much. If you want to control their growth, you could cut them out or cut them back. You could cut out some older canes or older trunks, I should say, from the base, maybe at year 5 or 6. But otherwise, you don't have to really even touch them. They're really problem-free, other than the birds. And a lot of these berries are pretty problem-free, guys. Delia, I'm sorry, I don't know how to pronounce her name. Maybe I think it's Delia, but she says hello. Is it she? I can't see your photo. It's too small. I'm making a mess out of your name and your photo right now. But she says she's new here. Welcome. And that's the last comment she will ever comment. Okay. What else we got here? Okay, so the huckleberry is in the family of blueberries. Okay, so Planetary Awareness says that the wintergreen, what is the name of that berry? Wintergreen cherry berry is actually really good. It tastes like wintergreen gum. Wow. Christopher says, I hear huckleberries are very popular in the Northwest. Never tried them myself. And they both like shade. Dalton says, any pruning tips for Lycium chinense? Well, it depends if it's in the ground or in a container. But for me, I would just kind of train them in a single stem column. Well, it's going to have multi stems, but you're going to have to kind of tie them all to that trellis. Like I said, this is the stake. Tie them all to that trellis and let them kind of umbrella out. And once they get a bit out of control, you can always prune them back. You can take out canes from the base. They're always going to send up new shoots from lower as new canes, but also they're going to kind of send out new little umbrellas, branches from lower down. It's up to you. I think you can really get some beauty. I've seen some beautiful goji berries, by the way, done just like that. But you can prune them actually during the growing season, believe it or not. You can prune them at wintertime. I find they're just very hardy, easy to grow plants, and you can kind of do no wrong with them. Let's see here. Jerry's asking about the birds and the critters again. You'll soon learn, I think, Jerry. Okay, so Christopher says, I think his honeyberry is only 12 inches at 3 years old. Yeah, he says it's terrible soil. Man, I really just think that they take a while to get going. And if you don't put a lot of mulch down, which is going to break down and conserve a lot of that moisture, I think it's a lot more difficult to grow them. If you're not growing them in the native soil or compost, I think that's also a mistake. Christopher Pineda, I don't know, sorry, says, what growing zone are you in? 7A. We're right outside. Okay, he's not even talking to me. Or maybe he is. I don't know. Okay. All right, Karen says, I'm in zone 5A, so fig trees are a no-go until I have a greenhouse, I think. Well, yeah, sort of. I mean, if you're not willing to grow them indoors or at least wake them up in a window, you could do it if you wake them up in a window. There is somebody I know who's growing Hardy Chicago in Maine, in the ground. And he wraps his tree every winter and he gets a crop every year. He's in Maine, zone 5. You can do it. It's just a little bit more work. You got to get the right variety, Karen, too. If you're not getting a real early variety, just forget about it. You're looking at Floria, Ronde Bordeaux, Celeste, Pasteliere is probably another one. I would definitely get yourself Hardy Chicago. That's probably going to be your best bet. And you could really try to put that in the ground. Heat up the soil very early in the season. Get the thing going, and you got to wrap it. Fig trees do not need sunlight during the winter if they're dormant. They should go dormant, by the way, before you bring them in the house. So Mark says the plum Cucurlio destroyed his peaches last year. Hey man, that's very possible. And a lot of people struggle with this pest. They've been struggling with it for years. I think for like 3 decades or so, this pest has been an issue. I haven't had it that bad. And this is the first year last year that I really saw it. But any damage I saw, I picked up those peaches off the ground. If you leave any fruit, this is a good tip for you, Jerry. If you leave any fruit on the ground, you are making a mistake. Pick up every single piece of fruit. Protect every single piece of fruit. Don't let any of the wildlife get any of it. Unless you have a food forest and you have space to let these animals get this stuff. Otherwise, it's a real mistake to let these fruits, even if they're not ripe, pick them up off the ground, because there's some sort of insect that's going to populate itself in that insect. Let's see here. Menchie's PA says, do you cover planted figs with anything to kickstart their growth, or put rocks or something around the trunk? It's just rocks, just stones, boulders. We have lots of thermal mass around every single planting of my figs. Black plastic, that greenhouse nursery plastic they put on the ground, that stuff works wonders. Anything you can do to plant them a bit higher, warm that soil up is going to be huge. And I'm going to notice that. I'm already starting to notice it. My frost has not even ended. We're not even at May 1st, and my trees are already starting to show incredible amounts of growth. I'm actually shocked. I can't believe it. Excuse me, guys. We're going to have an incredible season this year with the in-ground figs that I'm going to really be able to show you guys something. Let's see here. Karen says, any specific variety for Zone 5A? Yeah, I mean, that's it. I would personally, you're going to have the best success, Karen, growing it in a pot. Hardy Chicago, all the early varieties I had mentioned. Put it in a pot, wake it up early, put it in a window. You can keep it in your basement. You can keep it in the garage. You can keep it somewhere where the temperatures are above 20 degrees Fahrenheit all winter. Once things start to warm up, bring that pot outside for the day and then bring it back in at night, right around this time of the year. And then you can, once the frost is gone, put them outside full time and put them in a place that gets a lot of heat. Like I said with the in-ground trees, give them all the heat you can. That's like the best fertilizer for figs. And we're actually putting out a video. The best fertilizer for figs is heat. And we're putting out that video, I think, this weekend, if I'm not mistaken. Let's see here. Next question. Love, Joy, Gratitude says, which berries besides blueberries grow well in pots? I'm not kidding, guys. I've grown almost everything in my yard at one point in a pot. Because originally we had everything in a pot. This was like 3 or 4 years ago. And you can grow any berry. Alright, loosely depending on your definition of a berry. But all the berries I had just mentioned, you can grow in a pot. And they will fruit. The problem is berries love wet soil, so if you have them in a pot, you need to make sure that they're not drying out. A lot of these berries will not like you if you let the pot dry out. Also, you need to feed them. Just like any container plant that has a fruiting plant in it or a vegetable, an annual, whatever it is, you have to feed the soil in a pot. There's no other way around it. Let's see here. Christopher says, lingonberries, goji berries, my first fruit already has a peck in it. Oh, his first fig already has a peck in it. I'm going to have to follow suit and get some bird netting. Yeah. Christopher, I'm not really sure what you're saying about lingonberries or goji berries. Maybe it's something to do with what you said earlier. I don't even see. Here we go. What growing zone are you in? Okay, yeah. Let me know, Christopher, if you were actually asking me a question there. Hey, Tommy, what's going on, buddy? He says, what's a great variety of fig to give to someone in your zone? Hardy Chicago, man. Dude, if you go to ediblelandscaping.com, you can get all the standard, really reliable figs from Edible Landscaping. Hardy Chicago, Celeste, LSU Purple. This is Southern Brown Turkey. Violette de Bordeaux, Canadria. Petite Negri, this is Violette de Bordeaux. Texas BA1 is basically Smith. Verte, which is your typical Adriatic type. All these figs will do pretty well. The best one, though, is going to be Hardy Chicago and Celeste, Violette de Bordeaux. Those are definitely, undoubtedly, some of the best figs for my area. And it's weird because you see all these people who hype up all these weird varieties of figs. Yeah, they may be a little bit tastier than the ones I just mentioned, but there's almost nothing in my climate that beats Hardy Chicago or Violette de Bordeaux. I promise you. There is very few figs. And in terms of an overall rating, in terms of like how many fruits you're eating, the quality of the fruit, how early the fruit is, there's almost nothing that beats those two out of thousands of varieties. Okay, Troy says, have you tried pawpaws? I have. He says they grow wild here in the 6B, 7A zone. Yeah, they do. He's in the border of Illinois and Kentucky in the Shawnee National Forest. You are lucky, my friend. I wish they were native around me, but I have to drive quite a bit, I think, to find them. Probably I would say maybe about an hour and a half, 2 hours away. Which isn't too far away, but I am growing them. I've been growing them in the ground for years, 4 years at least now, I think. This year, I'm really hoping they do something for me. But there's no flowers this year. I've noticed it. I'm pretty sure there's no flowers this year on the pawpaws. I don't know what we're going to do because the pawpaws are really incredible, and the place that I have them planted is very shady, and that has been a big misconception that a lot of people had told me at the beginning. Put them in a shadier spot. It's really not a good idea. Yeah, they kind of don't like too much sun at a younger age, but you can always put a shade cloth on it, and then once they get a little bit stronger, a year passes by, you can put them in full sun, and they're going to be way better off for it. If they were in full sun, I think they probably would have fruited this year, maybe even last year. So it's a bit shame, but you know that particular fruit takes a long time to come into bearing, to really get established. I've noticed for sure that it has already put out tons of roots, especially around the top. Those feeder roots, believe it or not, are pretty plentiful. Christopher's talking about pawpaw, and he's just planted one this year. It just broke dormancy, and he can't wait to see how it does. Good luck, buddy. It takes a bit of time for them really to get going. Troy said there's someone growing in Wisconsin selling on FigBid in containers. They're selling pawpaw. Is that what that is you're talking about? Christopher said, have you tried growing beach plums? I haven't, but they do grow really well. They're native along the beach areas, in sandier soils, probably with soils with lower pH. They would certainly do well here. I just don't have the room, and I'd rather grow a more dessert style peach. I've tried them actually. I got to eat some in Japan, beach plums, and I wasn't too impressed by them, but they are pretty decent. It's something. You know, they are a pretty decent plum. Dub Smashed says, can you plant seeds in dried figs? No. Sorry. John says, I just learned what SWD is. How do we avoid these? Well, I've done some videos on SWD. So far, my biggest line of defense has been getting together a nice little stew of the things that they like. They like fermented foods, fermented fruits. They love decaying leaves, decaying materials. If you kind of just put all that together in a bucket, fill it in with some water, and it continues to ferment, it's going to attract all those SWD to that location. And if you put some soap in there, they're going to go into the water and they're going to drown. And you're kind of like laying a trap. You can also do the same thing in a bottle. And there's ways you can pretty much set up a bottle. And that seems to me has worked for me the 3 or 4 times I've done it. And as soon as I start to see them, I get myself together some fermented food, some fermented fruits that after like a pretty bad rain or a stretch of rain is usually what happens. And it starts to ferment some of those overripe fruits. Put them together in the bucket, and that's like the end of it. And, you know, that'll usually last for about a week. You should probably dispose of it and then restart the process if you're seeing them again. I wouldn't spray anything for the SWD. I think that's a big waste of time. Also, I think you know, you don't really want to be spraying anything you don't have to. Let's be honest. No one wants to eat that stuff, right? Christopher said, can you stick fig cuttings in the ground to start them, or is it still too late? I got some left over to try. Yeah, you can. In fact, I have a video coming out very soon. We stuck in the last couple days about 20 fig cuttings in the ground to root them. There's some people that create beds, and they just have a bed, and that's dedicated to rooting figs. Certainly doable. I'd recommend that you get some cuttings that are a bit fresh, thicker, older wood. Those cuttings are going to have basically a better chance of survival because they're not going to desiccate nearly as easily. Also, they're going to really be able to stand up to the excess moisture that you may have in your soil. Okay, Dub Smash says, what figs are suited to zone 8 and 9? Do you live in a dry climate, Dub Smash, like California? Because we did a video on the best varieties for California. And you can see this here. If you search on the channel, just put in California, best fig varieties. And this is what we talk about. Every single variety I recommend for a drier climate. There's definitely a big difference between a dry climate fig and a humid climate fig. It's not enough to tell me what zone you're in. Tommy said, when are you bringing out your rooted fig cuttings that you grew this winter? We just talked about it, actually, Tommy. We are actually hardening them off right now. But we still have 4 bins in the closet next to me, because what's really important is you don't want to take them out too soon, right? We do definitely want to avoid a frost. If a frost comes in, we're bringing them inside, without a doubt. Also, it's really important that before you even try to harden them off, you need to harden them off indoors. They need to have wood that is hardened. That lignification needs to have started on the limbs, which then corresponds to lignification that has happened on the roots. That hardening off process represents that the fig cutting plant is it's going to survive a lot better than if you had a lot of green growth on your tree, which could really be easily susceptible to drying out or dying or being burnt, something. You know, if it's got that hardened up growth, the tree could kind of lose a little bit of that limb. Let's say something happens. And it can come back from that hardened up wood. So that's really some insurance right there. And I would look very closely at which trees you have that are at that stage before you move them out. Like I said, I have 4 bins in the closet, still in the closet, hardening up, waiting for them to harden up. I'm not moving them out until they do. That's roughly about 80 trees still in the closet. Also, we're doing a video really soon, actually, on that topic. You don't want to do that quickly. You want to do that very, very slowly. Because if you think you succeeded just by getting leaves and roots, think again, man. Because adjusting to the outdoor that outdoor conditions, that's really what separates something that survived and what didn't. Troy said, would you use Hardy Chicago and Violet de Bordeaux in a greenhouse production? Yeah. Yeah, why not? Okay. Christopher says, yeah, my pawpaws are quite flowered out right now. Only 2 to 3 years old. See? Yeah. I don't know. The area I have them in is such a really horrible soil that I've had to build up the soil over years to get the soil at a respectable point. Even the grass doesn't really grow well there. So it's just a combination of bad soil, lack of sunlight. Who knows? Troy says he's an hour ride on horseback to at least 1 5-acre understory patch. Oh my goodness. Troy, who talks about distance in terms of horseback distance? I think you must be 100 years old, buddy. I'm just kidding. Christopher said, let's see, I had some pawpaw bread last year. Really good. Better than zucchini bread. I like zucchini bread. Sounds good. I think anything pawpaw is good. I'm going to be honest. Pawpaw is actually really good. And one variety that I'm recommending is Allegheny, because I have a link here I want to show you guys. Wait, this isn't it. This was a taste test on many varieties of pawpaw. You can see down in here. Here's the results. Allegheny is the top one. And here's that bitter aftertaste that I don't really like in some pawpaw. This one didn't have much of that. So Allegheny is definitely the one that I'm going to pick up in the future on whenever I move out and move to another property. By the way, they're beautiful, beautiful trees. Whenever you move to a new property and you're thinking about planting something, this is like the first thing you should plant, without a doubt. Get this thing in the ground, man. It's gonna take forever. Let's see here. DK, what's up, man? He said you have a video on the SWD. I do, and I want to link that to you guys as well. There we go. There's that little stew that we created. Basically giving them like a nice little trap. So the trap certainly does draw them. And I've noticed right after I put the trap out, that day and the day after, and the day after that, so in like the first 2 or 3 days, the numbers of SWD is drastically down, almost gone. It's kind of incredible. Let's see here. Christopher said, anyone live next to a neighbor who make you cringe as they spray all kinds of chemical crap for every problem in their yard? Yeah, it does. And my parents spray all kinds of chemical crap. Let's see here. Lovejoy Gratitude said, can you overwinter dormant figs in a basement that's above 50? You can, but they're going to grow. They're going to start to grow, and they're going to grow all winter, and they're not going to have any light. And the issue there is that you're going to have real lanky shoots that are really susceptible to getting sunburn. So I wouldn't recommend it. That's one thing I really wouldn't do, although people do it all the time. And I don't know how they get away with it. But your fruit quality, I think, or your fruit quantity is certainly going to suffer because of that. Yeah, you guys seem to have figured it out. They definitely wake up too soon. I mean, if they're at 50 towards like March, you know, towards like the beginning of the spring, it may actually be a good thing, you know? But if they're at 50 all wintertime, forget about it. They're going to wake up in like December and January. Troy said, well, it's the best way to get a big pawpaw patch, and that's the main thing that goes into the Shawnee trail riding right on the river. Oh, okay, so it's a horseback ride to the... That is so cool. Let's see here. Yeah, I don't know why some of you guys haven't tried this. I really wanted you guys to try this SWD trap and kind of let me know. I haven't heard many people have tried this. I've talked about it a lot, and it works for me. But I haven't heard many people actually respond and give me input as to whether or not it's working for them. I mean, some people don't believe that it works, but it's like, at least try it. What's wrong with you? You know what I mean? Okay, so Dub Smash says he's rainy. 500 milliliters of spring and autumn rain is moderate summer. I don't know milliliters. Let's see. One milliliter is a cubic inch. What a cubic inch? What, guys? This is too difficult, man. All right, let's just say 500 cubic inches. So is that 90 inches? Or actually, is that 10 inches? Yeah. So 1. No? Guys, we need a scientist in the chat. Can someone please help me out here? Alright, well, point is, I don't know how much rain you get. He says, though, it's really dry 2 days of rain. Okay, wait. Is really dry 2 days of rain for all summer? Oh, that's really dry. Yeah. What are we even thinking about here? Why are we even trying to figure out these math equations? Yeah, 2 days of rain all summer is nothing. So you live in a really dry climate. A lot of the figs that I recommended in that video for California is going to definitely do well for you. You just got to watch out because some of them require the wasp, the blastophaga. It's a special wasp that will pollinate Smyrna type figs, and if you don't have the wasp but you have a Smyrna type, you're not going to get fruit. So make sure you get varieties. If you don't know you have the wasp, get varieties that are common that do not require the wasp. Lovejoy Gratitude says she's not sure. Well, you're not sure if how cold your garage gets, so you got to get a thermometer in there. You know, Lovejoy Gratitude, what zone are you in? How cold does it get outside? At the lowest point all winter. Christopher said, yeah, I kept one fig awake through the winter, and it was blown away by the one that went dormant in terms of growth. Yeah, you got to let them go dormant, too. You can't just keep them awake all winter. That wasn't what I was getting at, but yeah, you got to keep them. You got to let them go dormant. We're lucky SWD hasn't been spotted here. You are lucky. I forget, rainfall measures are based on 1 inch deep over a square foot. 1 cubic inch would be 1 inch of rain. So, wait. Rainfall measure based on 1 inch deep over a square foot, really? Okay, so yeah, I'm still confused, guys. Still confused. All right, we got to the end. I finally caught up with you guys. Let me know if there's any more questions because we are going to end this a bit soon. If you haven't already, check us out on Instagram, man. We're putting up posts every day. I'm just really surprised. Well, Facebook too, or Twitter. We post all the same content to all three of those. But I'm really shocked at how beautiful the yard has become. Like I was saying, I mean, look at these beautiful flower bulbs, tulips, daffodils. We also have tons of flowers right now. There's more coming out tomorrow, believe it or not. If I could show you this. You know what? We've got here some other flowers that maybe you guys haven't seen yet. No, you've seen these. These are my bush cherries. They are loaded this year. And I have 3 of them that look just like this. My bush cherries are more productive than my actual cherries, the sweet Bing type cherries that are like 1 or 2 or 3 years older. Ground cherries are not worth a damn, it seems like. They have a really weird taste. Look how beautiful these photos are. I figured out my camera a little bit, guys. I haven't figured out how to focus in the videos just yet, but I figured out how to really focus well when taking photos. And these are the peaches, by the way. The peaches put out real beautiful flowers. Here, these are the hyacinths, and then this is the garlic. More bush. Okay, no, these are pears. The pears are loaded, guys. Loaded. My strawberries, believe it or not, even though this is a picture of a strawberry, but some of them are actually flowering now. This is one of my plums. We have figs all over the place. This is one of my cherry trees. This is the Bing type. Here's a fig with 10 breva on it. We have flowers on the sugar snap peas. Here's some apples. All the apples are flowering, by the way. And here's the Goji Berry. The Goji Berry, by the way, very soon will flower and fruit. They fruit very early. Ain't that beautiful? Okay. Did I ever come up with a name for the orchard? I didn't. And if anyone has a name, let me know. I'm trying to come up with a name for the orchard. This is not going to be the orchard forever. You know, there's going to be a secondary orchard. So I think the theme of this orchard is really experimental. Pushing the limits of what I can grow. So something around that theme is like what I kind of want to name it after. You know, that this isn't a forever orchard. This isn't here permanently, and that we're experimenting, trying to push the limits. But yeah, TJ, I don't think they're really that great. Ground cherries, to me, I've seen them in warm climates, and I bet you they're definitely more productive there. But these, I haven't really loved them because you need to eat them when they're super orange like this. If you don't eat them orange, you eat them yellow or green, they suck. So you got to let them turn real orange, and they're actually pretty decent. But I didn't really think that they were too great. I bet you there's a variety of them out there somewhere that's maybe a bit more adapted, that has better flavor. And I'd be interested to find out what that is. But in no way, I think, are these going to beat something like a lot of the berries we talked about. I mean, a mulberry compared to a ground cherry, there's like no comparison. There's a weird flavors in here, right? It may be a bit more complex. Tommy said, is it okay to prune the tips of the fig trees right now that are outside? Are they dormant? If they're not dormant, don't prune them. Lovejoy Gratitude said, what varieties of bush cherries are you growing? Romeo, Juliet, and Carmine Jewel. Really, really, I think are going to be worth growing. Compared to the actual Bing cherry types, I think are a complete waste. I'm going to be honest. Plus, they're actually really beautiful trees. I have them out in the front of the house. You guys never really get to see the front of the house. Well, at least too much. So I think they're really beautiful in that location. And next year, I think they're really going to put on a show. You're welcome, Karen. Thank you, Christopher. And then Christopher said, have you ever had success growing mulberry in containers? Yeah. Yeah, they do. They grow really well. Certainly, though, what would be better for a container is the Morris Niagara mulberry, which is the mulberry that I'm growing in containers. This one is the highest quality mulberry, they say. It's very compact. It's not very vigorous at all like the other ones. And I would recommend seriously thinking about it. And I'm seriously thinking about growing more of them. If I get them to fruit this year, my one tree, which it should, it looks like it's about to, because the way that it's growing and putting out new leaves suggests that there's actually going to be some fruit attached with it. I don't know. We'll have to see. But I'm really excited for it. And it's supposed to be really tasty, like I said. And if it is, we're going to grow many of them. I'm going to really go nuts with them. Another thing I want to go nuts with is kumquats. And these kumquats, man, same thing with other, more acidic citrus that they're not really that sweet, like limes and lemons. We're going to really start to get on that. I think these trees can actually be really productive, and this is one of the earlier fruits in the year. So the kumquat in particular is going to actually fruit for me in early spring, depending on the variety, depending on how well I overwintered it. There's a bunch of different factors, but for certain, these guys will provide me with some really good fruit early in the season here in my climate, which is legitimately why I want to grow more of them. TJ says, any pineapple experts here? I know there's the Sugarloaf. Is that what it's called? It's supposed to be really good. I made a post in the other fruit section of our figs, super close to a completely ripe homegrown pineapple. Oh, you are growing them? How long did it take you? What climate are you in, TJ? I forget. Tommy says, I know you say you want to downsize your fig collection, but any new varieties you have your eye on? Yeah, Tommy. I mean, I always have my eye on new varieties, but for the most part, we are inevitably downsizing. And what I mean downsizing is we're getting rid of more varieties than we're adding. And then to eventually get to a point where I'm down to about 50 or so fig trees in containers. I think 50 is a real reasonable number to kind of deal with and have to look after and have to move around. Preferably, I have them in like 15-gallon size, I think is a good size. It's getting a little too heavy at 15 gallons, but 10 gallons is certainly real easy to move for just one person. For me, anyway. Yeah, TJ, if I lived in San Diego, I'd be growing pineapples all over the place. Same thing with kumquats, man. Oh, man, if I lived in San Diego, it'd be so easy to grow citrus. It's insane. What would I do with all that citrus, guys? If I lived in San Diego. It's a fun game. It's a fun game to play, isn't it? You know what? I would have. Man, it depends though, because if you don't got a lot of land, I would grow a persimmon for sure, a pomegranate for sure, figs for sure, mulberries for sure. If I live in San Diego, oh my god, dude, you could probably grow even some tropical things. You might even be able to get away with a black sapote. Maybe even bananas. I think you can grow bananas in San Diego. Your key lime from seed took 2 years. That's it? Oh my god, dude. Anyway, guys, I'm getting to the end here of this live stream. This is a good one. I definitely enjoyed this, spending time with you guys. I want to wish everybody a really fantastic season. I also want to say that I've just been blown away by the amount of beauty that's been coming in my yard. Every year it just gets better and better and better, to the point where I just don't know when it's ever going to stop, to the point where I'm like, am I ever going to think, wow, this is done? You know, I think this is like really something that you guys should be real happy that you're a part of something like this, and you guys are, you know, in this hobby for the right reasons. So, okay, guys, thank you so much. We will catch you all for next week's episode of Fruit Talk. We'll see you for tomorrow's video. Karen, never grown quince because you got to process it. But yeah, I'll talk to everybody soon. All right, take care, guys. If you want to see more live streams like this, you just got to hit the bell down here on the Facebook, on the YouTube page. Somewhere around here, there's a bell. Don't know where it's at. But that will notify you when we're doing another live stream. All right, guys. Take care. See you tomorrow.